Hello everybody, I'm Mango Thunderslice, and today we're talking about what is white culture, right? It's, I guess I've made a few videos about racial topics in the last few months, and I don't know, maybe people are getting tired of it, maybe they're not. It seems like the rest of America and the rest of the world isn't getting tired of the discussion, so it's kind of the vein that I'm tapping into, if you will. Just went to my CCW interview with the Sheriff's Department here in the county this morning. Got my tires changed on my car and feeling like it's a pretty productive day, and just thought I'd reflect on this because I don't know, it just seems very clear to me now that my eyes are open to it, whereas before I remember having conversations even with Space Panther about what is white culture? Like, there is no American culture, right? It's just like, other people have culture. All these other ethnicities, they have culture, right? Hispanic culture, or black culture, whatnot. But, as far as white American culture, they don't really have a culture. But I think it's really kind of a situation of the fish doesn't really know how to identify the water in which it swims type of thing. It doesn't mean that the water doesn't exist, just means that the fish is oblivious to it. Because there is absolutely very much such a thing as white culture and American culture, and it's so often derided and cast aside and diminished in the public conversation today. And again, I think it's good to counterbalance that. I think it's being counterbalanced by a lot of really awesome people in our culture today. The Sheriff of Nottingham often responds to the call. I told Space Panther what I was going to do the video about, what is white culture, and she proceeded to say, hey, these knives are really not sharp. We need to sharpen these knives. And I was like, hey, that's an example of white culture, right? Metal smithing and metallurgy and blade sharpening, right? That definitely wasn't the hallmark of the Zulu tribe, right? There are definitely plenty of Chinese people with swords too, but even in Asia, that's the thing. There's still the white and the dark, kind of dichotomy. Like, right, there's the Asians. They love to make their skin more light, right, and because it makes them seem more upper class, right. And a lot of the Asian countries, they just associate darker skin with a lower class. You're more out in the sun, right? You're darker. You have less money and status and wealth and whatnot. Whereas if you're lighter, all right, you're part of the king's court, the emperor's court, right, and you don't have to be out in the sun all day. So there's a lot of different aspects. Even within cultures that are genetically homogenous, there's still a light and a dark aspect, but it pertains more to class than it does to actual race, because obviously they're all Chinese, the dark and the light Chinese. But, and the Asians are a good example of what can be achieved, just in terms of collective cohesion, right? In terms of collective cohesion, they're very easily arguably greater than the European white people, right? They are very good at molding themselves into a collective civilization and adapting to that on an individual level. Whereas with the European heritage, and again, with Europe, there's so many different people that developed in that whole paradigm of Europe, right? You have a much higher level of individualism, right? The Enlightenment and the Renaissance, you have the development of the individual rational human, right? And even that is all taking place within the scope of Judeo-Christian, right, religious values of there's a universal spirit, there's a God watching us, judging our actions. We shouldn't just steal and rape and pillage and take things by force and beat our enemies into submission, because there's ulterior goals, right? And that it's not all just this immediate self-gratification, right? So that's the thing. There's individuality on one axis, right? And then there's impulse control on another axis, right? And impulse control, right? The Asians have very high impulse control, but maybe moderate to low levels of individuality, right? They're very much into their collective identity, and of course they have individual personalities, but it's not so much culturally accentuated as it is in, say, like Scottish or Irish, right, or, you know, several different European cultures. The individual is far more the forefront and focus culturally. And, you know, and without ascribing value to a human life, right, we can look at African cultures and we can see, you know, very low impulse control, or at least relatively low impulse control, and, you know, basically individuality only in the organic sense. And, you know, I'm not the greatest scholar on African kingdoms and the, you know, pre-Roman era, right, but, and the pre-colonial era, rather, but it's just, you know, regardless of the impact that colonialism has had in a negative sense, right, there's simply just the mathematical reality of innovation, of, you know, basically when you learn how to manipulate reality by obeying reality's rules, right? You manipulate nature by obeying her laws, right? And that is white culture. It is about delaying impulse control, right? High impulse control, but also a high level of individuality, where you have people basically not, you know, taking whatever they want in the present moment, right? You have people delaying gratification. You have people basically working for a long-term outcome, but you also have a very high emphasis on the individual, right? People, you know, going out and, you know, developing the Western states, right? It was just basically a person and his family and maybe a mule and some oxen and a field and some seeds, right? And it's like, all right, go. You know, and that's what it is. It's like, you know, and of course, absolutely, people of different races took part in this culture, in this American culture. There are, you know, what was it, like, you know, the first black Republican politician was like back in 1890, and the first black Democratic politician was like in 1992, right? Dinesh D'Souza's new movie, I haven't seen it yet, but I saw his last one during the 2016 election, and it's just great. Just showing that basically the Democratic Party is the party of the Ku Klux Klan, right? Birth of a Nation, Woodrow Wilson, shown in the White House, right? The party of slavery, right? It was Southern Democrats that were the slave owners, 100%, yes it was, right? And the party of fascism, right? It's FDR and Mussolini and, you know, Hitler. These guys, like, are far more connected than Trump is to any of them, right? And it's just, it's providing for your family, it's delaying gratification, it's focused on the individual sovereignty, it's basically investing your time, energy, and money and everything you have into creating something new and better so that that can benefit everyone, right? And that's capitalism, right? Capitalism is white culture, and capitalism is an absolutely beautiful, glorious thing. And it's like, for people to whine and bitch about capitalism on their iPhones that cost, what, $600 to $1,000, right? And was made using all sorts of crazy inventions, almost all of which by white people, right? And, you know, they're driving around in their cars, you know, invented by white people. You know, with the automotive industry, I'm sure you had a lot more percentage of, you know, non-white people inventing things, because it was very open source type of development, the automotive industry, right? It wasn't scientists in their laboratories, it was Joe in the garage, right? Just, you know, fashioning parts, right? But, you know, at least with regards to the CCW, right? Smith and Wesson, right? Horace Smith and Daniel Wesson, I believe their names were. Samuel Colt, right? White guys. Oliver White, you know, Oliver Winchester, white guys, right? These businessmen, and you can say, oh, they're just raw capitalists. Oh, they care about his money. No, they cared about money in the pursuit of providing for themselves and their family, right? To reduce everything to money is such a communist little beta male cuck personality move, you know. I don't know. Don't mean to lash out at people. I'm trying to keep it on point, but it's just, it's such a, it's so pathetic when people denigrate an entire culture while they're at the same time living high on the hog off the fat of previous people's inventions and intense care and passion, right? The Wright brothers, white guys, worked in a bicycle shop, invented the airplane, right? Why? Why did they invent the airplane? Is that just because of white privilege? It was the privilege of owning a bicycle shop that made them invent the airplane. No, they had ambition. They were part of a culture that appreciated ambition. They were part of a culture that appreciated material wealth and the generation of it, and people creating opportunity, right? And that's exactly what they did. Whether it's Smith and Wesson, the Wright brothers, right? John Clerk Maxwell, James Clerk Maxwell, right, who invented not invented, but discovered, right, Maxwell's laws, which are the basis of, you know, all the good parts of our Einsteinian relativity and modern electromagnetic theory, right? Scotsman, right? James Clerk Maxwell was Scotsman, right? All these different people who invented all these things, and that was all a part of white culture. That was all a people's culture of appreciating individual achievement, of appreciating impulse control, of us all basically, you know, creating that society and playing our part, you know. And not everybody invented the airplane, not everybody invented the, you know, semi-automatic, you know, pistol, right? But all of us and all of our families played a part in that, right? Like, you know, I don't know. And the more that people want to just bitch and whine about their victim status, the more that they're not going to have any part in that real continuum of human history, right? But everybody who's just taking Jordan Peterson's advice, just cleaning up your own room, cleaning up your own life, making some wealth, making a life for yourself, creating some children, right? Just create a life. You will participate in this great, you know, continuum of human history, this great white culture, this great culture of America and culture of the world. Because it's not just all about us. That's the whole nature of capitalism. When you invent something, everybody benefits, right? An American guy, a Chinese guy, a black guy, a Hispanic guy, they invent something and everybody benefits, right? The only thing that's different and arguably, not objectively, but arguably superior about white culture is basically that we explicitly recognize ambition and individuality and impulse control. And so we actively foster a culture where people want to achieve, they want to invent, they want to build wealth. And when people focus on that, even if it's for a base material motive, it still ends up benefiting every single person on the planet, right? Regardless of whether they're rich or poor. A poor person today lives a life only the royalty of even 100 years ago could even imagine. I mean, the amount of foods that people can eat, the speeds we can travel, right, in affordable means of transportation, as far as personal defense, this was not that much money, right? I mean, this is amazing, and it's all because of the market economy, and it's because of a culture that emphasized the value of individual production. And when you see basically things like in South Africa, where white farmers are getting their land forcibly taken without compensation, basically stolen, it's a perfect example, this whole South Africa thing, of how political speech can be used to disguise the most naked crimes, right? The expropriation of land without compensation shall be ratified by the Constitution in an amendment. Like, they're basically saying, we're gonna make it okay officially to steal all of your shit. Okay, we're gonna steal your fucking land. That's what they're saying in rosy, you know, fanciful speech that they learned from their own colonizers, right? And again, it's not defending all the actions of all white people everywhere, but I mean, these, at least in South Africa, these are farmers who have been tending that land, and their family's been tending that land since before America existed, right? And they're having their land taken from them without compensation, no money given. And then that land is given to some illiterate black person from Johannesburg, right? And they don't know how to farm. They don't know what the hell they're doing, right? Oh, but it's social justice, so go and get it, right? And what ends up happening is the land lays fallow, right? And nothing ends up getting grown, and people end up starving, right? This is Zimbabwe all over again. People want to pretend like this stupid communist nonsense is, oh, maybe it'll work this time. We've never tried it before. It's like, seriously, it is designed to fail because it is so unrepairably ignorant of human nature, and mathematical reality, okay? Without the discovery of price, right? Without that process of the market economy, nobody knows what the hell to do. Nobody knows what the value of anything is. You can only know these things through free association. That, again, is the foundation of capitalism and the market economy, and without it, we live in a shithole country, to use Trumpian speech. Allegedly Trumpian speech. And that's it, man. I mean, it's like crazy that just to ignore the expertise and the rightful ownership of basically these white South African farmers and giving their land away to somebody who doesn't even know how to farm for social justice. Like, that in and of itself epitomizes the entire leftist mentality. We'll just completely shoot ourselves in the nuts. We'll completely cut our own throat for the sake of fairness. Like, that is insane. And any rational person with 2 brain cells firing in their head can see that this is a complete delusion, this whole progressive liberal ideology. And that real people just want to take care of their family, they want to build a life for themselves, they don't see anything wrong with that. And a philosophy that says, oh, we're all overpopulated, oh, human life is evil, and don't have kids, like, you know, and all this capitalism is just so exploiting and oppressive, like, just jog on, chap. Just, like, seriously, if you want to reincarnate in another lifetime that badly, then go ahead and finish the job, but spare us all your fucking whining, right? And that's what I got to say to the American left, and I guess it's really the American left. I mean, I don't really have much interaction with the European left. I guess, you know, it's just the nature of the beast out here. But that's my video today. Low or high impulse control, right, and a culture that focuses on individuality. That's what puts basically, you know, European culture, and even within that, to self-gratify a little bit, the Irish and Scotch and Celtic cultures at the very top right of that graph of the most respect for individuality. And actually not even just the Celtic culture, but America, right? American culture, which was heavily influenced by Celtic culture, of a respect for individuality and a respect for impulse control and delaying gratification so that you can build a life for your children. That is white culture, and it's an amazing, beautiful culture, and there's nothing wrong with it. And it's my hope that as a result of this video and the work of other, you know, cultural actors, that they will respect that more explicitly and not treat every white person like they own slaves, which, you know, even when slavery existed was a tiny, tiny percentage of the population, and of course, they were all Democrats. So, much love to you guys. Hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Ah.